There have been some that have asked me, including my own brother, why it was that the Jews, or why it is that the Jews only live in the cities, and why in the past they were relegated to being moneylenders. So what I'm going to do is go to Jewish Virtual Library at .org/moneylending and scroll down to the early rabbinic period. The center of Jewish life shifted towards Europe. The academics of Babylonia were gradually replaced by famous schools in France, Germany, and Spain. Monographs on the various European countries contain detailed accounts of the general and specifics in their history. Two factors, however, stand out: growing anti-Jewish legislation and the development of the feudal system with its demand for a Christian oath on the acquisition of land. So every time anyone were to buy or sell a piece of land among the Christians, they had to swear a Christian oath. Of course, you know, this oath was to the cross. And let me remind you that the cross carriers throughout all of the Crusades set out to murder those who were enemies of the cross. Okay? Now, they took the phrase from their twisted scripture in Philippians 3:17 through 21. It was not a cross, it was a tree. Now, so I'm going to continue here. As a result, Jews were increasingly cut off from land ownership. Yet even in countries like Spain and Italy, where Jewish urbanization took place less rapidly than in England and Germany, the Jews themselves no longer desired close contact with the soil. Well, if they had to swear a Christian oath or a Catholic oath or whatever it is that their Christian oath, they couldn't. They couldn't buy or sell land. Revelation 13. And this is speaking of the beast that comes out of the Eretz, or out of the Holy Land. But it says right here that he does everything that the first beast does. Everything. So everything that is written here, this is what the first beast does too. Yeah, verse 12, and he exercises all the power of the first beast before him and causes the Eretz and them to dwell therein to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. And he does wonders so that he makes fire come down from the sky like they do on what is it? It's called a holy fire miracle, as I have showed you many times. Miracle of the holy fire. So this is clearly referring to the Byzantines. The holy fire is described by Orthodox Christians as a miracle that occurs every year on the Church of the Sepulchre in Jerusalem on Great Saturday, as they say. And of course, it has been proven to be a fraud and a fake, but they still do it every year. It's a fake. So this is clearly referring to the Byzantine Church or the Orthodox Church But they do all the same thing as the beast that rises out of the sea. The beast that rises out of the sea, as I pointed out in yesterday's video, it is the sea serpent. Basilica, that is where the Catholics worship their idol. It comes from the word basilisk, and basilisk means this. The dragon, the sea monster. You see, the sea monster, the dragon, the serpent. The serpent. You see, they all know what it is. So they worship at the house of the basilisk. That's why they call it basilica. Now, makes fire to come down upon the earth in the sight of men. And he deceives them that dwell in the Eretz by the means of those fake wonders, which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying them to them that dwell on the Eretz that they should make an image of the beast, and they did, and just like this one did, which had the wound by the sword and did live, and he had the power to give life unto the image of the beast. We won't know what that means until it becomes obvious, of course, that the image should both speak and cause as many that would not worship the beast to be killed. Image of the beast to be killed. And he causes all, both great and small, rich and poor, receive free and bond, to receive a mark on their right hand and on their foreheads. Ash Wednesday, folks. There you go. There's your mark of the beast on the forehead. And I can show you the religions who do Ash Wednesday. Let's see, denominations. I should maybe do observe. Okay, I guess we'll go and, all right. It is observed by mainly Western Christians, but is also observed by some of the Orthodox religions. Catholics, the Roman Rite, Anglicans, Lutherans, Methodists, Moravians, the fake Nazarenes, the Independent Catholics, the Reformed, Congregationalists, Continental Reformed, Presbyterians, and United Protestants. Looks like the Anglican Church does too, of course. And as you can see, them doing this. Why would you put a mark on your forehead? Why would you do that? Now, you can see the emblem of the Vatican is a cross of keys, with each key having a cross on it. Okay? So we can look up emblem of Rome. Should be Christian Rome. Or we'll try it, see what happens. This is the original one, the Chi-Rho, with a cross and a sword. Okay, so what are the main Christian symbols? Cross and crucifix would be number one. All right, so here's another one right here that has both types of crosses. One that's an X, which is the first of the numbers of the beast's name. E and S would be the other three, as they represent 603 in Greek. But this is very similar to the British flag, as you can see. So, here's another one. The Roman Empire, symbol of the cross. That's what it is. So the emblem of Rome, any of the emblems of Rome should be considered mark of the beast. And so when you put this on your forehead, you're putting the mark of Rome, the mark of the beast, upon your forehead. This mark here. All right? So now we'll continue. Although they complain more and more about the shrinking opportunities to support themselves, because they were not allowed to buy and sell land. Just like Revelation 13 shows that the Jews were not allowed to, or that those who refused the mark of the beast, the symbol of Rome, were not allowed to buy or sell. Well, right here we see that they were not allowed to buy and sell land, more specifically. So they were forced to turn to money lending, you see. An often quoted responsum by the French 11th century scholar Joseph B. Samuel Tove Elam illustrates the change. Leah, the questioner, expresses dissatisfaction with the fact that taxes for which the community was responsible to the government were evenly distributed among the Jewish owners of fields and among merchants and traders. She is assessed for the ground she holds and for the crop it yields. In addition, the rulers of the land take their share from it In contrast, money lent on interest is profitable because the pledge remains in the hand of the creditor, and the principal increases without effort or expense. Joseph Tov Elim agreed with Leah's arguments against those who wish to assess her. Responsa of Meir of Rothenburg, 1895, number 941. Generally, it must be said that early medieval rabbinic legislation cleared the path for a great variety of Gentile Jewish and inter-Jewish money transactions, especially the authority of Jacob ben Meir Tam, Rashdi's grandson, carried great weight with his contemporaries and successors. He summarizes the reason for a number of his decisions in the following way. People today usually lend money on interest to Gentiles because we have to pay taxes to the king and princes, and everything serves to sustain ourselves. We live among the Gentiles, and it is impossible for us to earn a living unless we deal with them. It is therefore no more forbidden to lend at interest because one might learn from their deeds that it is to engage, than it is to engage in any other business. So there is your cut and dry reason why the Jews were forced to turn to money lending. Now I want to show you what happened to the Jews because they were forced to turn to money lending by the kings. You see, they were forced to swear an oath of allegiance to the Catholic Church if they were to buy or sell land. So they couldn't buy or sell land. And because of that, they could not buy and sell what came from the land. All that was left then was usury, money lending. Jews in the 13th century England by Ashton Brackett. The first Jewish settlement in England was brought by William the Conqueror after 1066 from Normandy. Those in the settlement had a special status as property of the king. So the Jews were the property of the king, which put them outside of the feudal system. We just read what the feudal system was, did we not? Okay. So money lending practices had already started when the Jews first came to 13th century England, and when they actually came in 1066. And left them under his complete power. In exchange, he gave them protection despite not issuing a legal charter promising this protection. Because they were not allowed to own land. What was the reason? They could not sell unless they swore allegiance to the Catholic Church, the cross, whatever. Have to go to Ash Wednesday and receive the mark of the beast upon their forehead and do their little thing that they do with their right hand across their chest or whatever that is. That is with their right hand. Jews were often forced into doing jobs that were prohibited for Christians, such as being money lenders and bankers, enabling them to make interest from loaning money and indebting many English Christians in the process. Well, whose fault was that? Whose fault is money lending? Is it the borrower or is it the lender? I'm going to leave that an open-ended question. By the reign of Henry II, at 1154 to 1189, the Jewish community was well established financially and politically in the English society and was a regular source of royal revenue. 12th century historian William of Newbury, who documented the affairs of his time, claimed that Henry II favored Jewish usurers more than what was right, because of the great financial advantage of Jewish usuries would bring him. The economic and political security of the Jews in the 12th century and the growing dissatisfaction with the status of the Jews by Christians in England during Henry II's reign left the nature of the coming century an interesting prospect. The status and treatment of the Jews living in England around the 13th century under the reign of Richard I, John, Henry III, and Edward I was influenced by the crusading spirit, sentiments of economic resentment and religious superiority, and the declining support and protection from the crown, ultimately creating a toxic environment for English Jews. Up until the end of Henry II's reign, Jews could be tenants of land on the same terms as Christian tenants. But in many regards, the Jewish community began to be treated as political and legal subordinates to English Christians, beginning with the reign of Richard I. In March of 1190, King Richard issued the Charter of the Jews, granting and confirming liberties to the Jews that had been given to Henry II. So Richard I put the granting of liberties to the Jews in writing. But this was not effective in extending the quality of life many Jews had during Henry II's reign. At the time of Richard I's coronation in 1189, there were about 5,000 Jews in England who fixed themselves in mostly urban areas like London, York, and Lincoln, since these were centers of business and trade. Why? Because they were not allowed to buy or sell land. Many citizens, such as merchants, farmers, and nobles, had to go through the Jews for most private transactions and were perpetually in debt to them. This made Christians feel like they were being lorded over by the Jewish people, which created a lot of resentment towards them. The sentiment of the Third Crusade of eradicating all enemies of the cross added to this animosity, demonstrated by the events surrounding the coronation of Richard I on September the 3rd, 1189. So where is it in Philippians 3 that says that you must murder and pillage and kill the enemies of the cross, as you say? You won't find it. Jews were not invited to Richard's coronation, but the chiefs of the Jews wanted to make sure that they would be treated as well as they were under Henry II, so they brought first fruits, most decorous and honorable, as gifts to the king, to the new king. Rather than receiving thanks, the Jews were turned away at the door because of the king's edict that prohibited their attendance. Many Christians who witnessed this began insulting the group of Jews at the gate, striking them with fists, sticks, and stones. Violent mobs broke out in and around London at the rumor that the king sanctioned the ejection of the Jews, which led to the mobs to assault and murder Jewish people, loot their homes, and set their houses on fire. So the Jews tried to bring first fruits to the king and were met with rape, pillage, and murder as a reward. William of Newburgh wrote that the Jews were either roasted in their own houses, or if they came out of them, were received with swords. During this London massacre, a Jew named Benedict of York was caught by the mob. In order to escape death, he was compelled to confess Christ, and being led into the church was baptized on the spot. He was spared because of his conversion, but most others refused to convert or were not given the opportunity before they were killed. After the riots ended, Benedict of York requested that his forced baptism be annulled, to which Richard approved, allowing him to be reestablished to reestablish his religious identity as a Jew before he died from mob-induced injuries. Word of this riot spread to other cities, and a wave of targeting Jewish settlements began across England, leaving the Jewish community in great fear. Following the London attack, Richard I made a decree to end the violence against the Jews and to reaffirm the right to protection. However, because Richard went off to fight in the Crusades and was not there to enforce this decree, the groups of Christians persisted according to their old ways, because many Englishmen were indebted to the impious usurers in large sums. This gave them an opportunity to enact violence against a group with economic power over them and to attempt to destroy the records of their debts. In February 1190, many Jews were butchered in their homes in Norwich. A month after this slaughter, a young Christian mob in Stamford, believing they could be doing the honor to Christ if they attacked his enemies, started attacking the Jews living in their town. Historian William of Newbury said that most of the Jews were able to escape, but their houses were pillaged and a great quantity of money captured. Jews living in the Lynn were so upset from the injustice of the London massacre that they attacked a Christian church but gave up and fled once the Christians in the town took up their arms to fight back. Jewish homes were stormed and pillaged by the Christians, as well as burned, and many of them fell victim to fire and sword. That same year in Bury St. Edmunds, with the king's approval, Abbot Samson, head of the town's monastery, ejected the surviving Jews from the town after a massacre of 57 Jews on Palm Sunday. Are you Christians proud of yourselves yet? You're proud of calling yourself a Christian, aren't you? Well, if you call yourself a Christian, you must wear the crimes of your forefathers. I know you don't believe that, but it's true. It says so in Isaiah 60. It says so in all of the prophets. Unless they were being protected by the local authorities, attacks like these happened on a smaller scale in many other towns where Jews resided. The most devastating and destructive attack on the Jewish community had erupted in the frenzy of Richard's coronation was the massacre at York in 1190. A violent riot erupted against the Jews, and their entire community was forced to take refuge at the York Castle, where they did not have sufficient arms or food to survive. Many committed suicide by slitting their own throats, setting rooms on fire, jumping from the castle walls to avoid being murdered or forced to convert by the Christians. The Jews who were unable to make it into the castle were given the option of being baptized or killed. Some converted to Christianity to save themselves, but those who refused were butchered without mercy. Benedict of York, who had been forcibly baptized in London, had his home destroyed, and his wife and children and other relatives murdered as a part of the attacks on the Jews in York. When the massacre ended at around 500 Jews were dead, the conspirators went to the cathedral and burned all the records of debt held within, by which the Christians were oppressed by the royal Jewish usurers. So they forced the Jews off the land, would not let them buy or sell land, and therefore the Jews could not buy or sell produce. As traders for a living, they had no choice but then to be moneylenders. And when they became moneylenders and were good at it, and the Christians could not control their spending, what did they do? They blamed it on the Jews. And this is the thing that bothers me about you Christians. How can you call yourself a Christian after knowing what Christians did in the past. It is no different than calling yourself a Nazi and then turn around and say that those Nazis who were responsible for the Holocaust were not real Nazis. This is the argument that you use. You see, as I pointed out many times in the past, that the word Christian was not a part of the disciples' vernacular. I've proven this. Yet you'll go to the words of Peter, where you claim he says Christian. He does no such thing. Because Peter spoke in Galilean Hebrew. That's the only language he spoke. So he never said the word Christian. And you can't find anywhere where Paul said the word Christian at all. The word was Nazarem in Hebrew. Nazarem. It was a sect of the Jews. So if you Christians claim to be of the sect of the Jews, how is it then that you went out and raped, pillaged, and murdered the Jews, burned them with fire, and thinking that you're doing your Messiah a service? Did we not read about the parable of the two servants, where the one owed a lot to the master and another one owed just a penny to the one who owed a lot? And the one who owed a lot threw the one who owed him only a penny in prison. Him and his wife and everything in prison, until he was able to pay that penny. And of course, the master found out about it and called this fella up and told him, look, he says, I forgave you of all your debt because you asked, but you didn't forgive the guy of his penny. So he threw that fellow in prison, just like that fellow had done unto the one who owed him a penny. This kind of activity is Christian by nature. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of works of the Christians against the Jews, well, just like this. I can't read all of this and do this video in less than 2 hours. It's too much. So when you Christians, you call them the synagogue of Satan, you do. When you do that, you need to look at yourself in the mirror and remember where your origin was, the Catholic Church, who worshiped this guy. It is you who worship at the synagogue of Satan, after all. Your cathedrals, your churches are all patterned after the one in Rome. You live a delusional lifestyle where you say those people who committed all those murders in the name of Rome, in the name of these Protestant churches that also participated in murders of the Jews and the Anabaptists in the 1500s, you say that those are not Christians. And because you say it, does that make it true? No. They were Christians. And when you say that you yourself and you had the same belief system as they did, then you carry the same sin as they committed. I want to show you something. This was something that Yehoshua said to the Jews of his time, in his day. Killed the prophets. This is the words that comes out of the mouth of Yehoshua. Where's 11? I lost it. 11:47. Okay. Verse 45. Then answered one of the lawyers and said unto him, Master, saying this, you reproach us also. And he said, Woe unto you also, you lawyers, for you load men with burdens grievous to be borne, and you yourselves touch not the burdens with one of your fingers. Woe to you, because you build the sepulchres of the prophets. This is just like today, the Christians build Holocaust memorials. You build sepulchres of the prophets, and your fathers killed them. Well, wait a minute. What was wrong with that? What is wrong with building Holocaust memorials if your forefathers murdered the Jews, specifically in Germany and those other countries in Europe who were responsible for the Holocaust? What is wrong with them building Holocaust memorials so that they remember not to do such a thing again? This is the way of thinking that goes into building these Holocaust memorials, right? We all agree on that. But Yehoshua said, Woe unto you, because you build the sepulchres of the prophets, and your fathers killed them, murdered them. You Christians, you think you're better than the Jews, right? You think that your forefathers killing the Jews is not going to be rendered on to you, the sin. You think that's the case. Why then did he, Yehoshua, render the sin of killing the prophets on that particular generation? Why did that? Why? So he said, Truly you bear witness that you allow the deeds of your fathers, for they indeed killed them, and you build the sepulchres. Wow. Let me go look at this in Strong's Concordance. Make sure I don't miss anything here. This is really something to say here, isn't it now? Not allow. So he says that when they build sepulchres to the prophets, that their forefathers had killed. By doing that, now I know that you Christians, especially those of you in Europe, when you build Holocaust memorials, showing that your forefathers murdered the Jews, you actually join the deeds of your fathers. For they indeed killed them, and you build their sepulchres. So what Yehoshua was saying then is that those who build the sepulchres of the prophets whose forefathers killed those prophets, they are actually participating in those murders that occurred many years ago. Using that logic, the Christians who build Holocaust memorials because their forefathers murdered the Jews prove that they are, as I'm going to use exactly the words that he used, you join in approving the deeds of your fathers. Now, why would he say such a thing? Okay, let me try to memorial to the murdered Jews of Europe. This gets even better. The memorial to the murdered Jews of Europe, also known as the Holocaust Memorial, is a memorial in Berlin to the Jewish victims of the Holocaust, designed by Peter Eisenman and engineer Buro Happold. He's a British professional. It consists of a 19,000 square meter site covering with the concrete slabs arranged in a grid pattern on a sloping field. All right, let's see. Unveiled a new law that was passed mandating memorials to be wheelchair accessible. After the recalculation, the number of the slabs could legally fit in the designated areas. They're organized in rows, 54 of them going north and south, and 87 heading east and west at right angles, but set slightly askew, and attached underground place of information. Holds the names of approximately 3 million Jewish Holocaust victims obtained from the Israel Museum Yad Vashem. The building began in April the 1st, 2003, and was finished on December 15, 2004. It was inaugurated on May 10, 2005, 60 years after the end of World War II in Europe, and opened to the public 2 days later. It is located 1 block south of the Brandenburg Gate in the Mitte neighborhood. The cost of construction was approximately £25 million. Beginnings. The debates over whether to have such a memorial and what form it should take extend back to the late 1980s, when a small group of private German citizens, led by the television journalist Leah Rosch and historian Eberhard Jackel, first began pressing for Germany to honor the 6 million Jews murdered in the Holocaust. So clearly, as you can see by now, the Holocaust Memorial was, the idea came from Germans. Now, I just showed you that Yehoshua condemned the lawyers in his time because they built the sepulchres, which were like memorials to the prophets. And when they did this, they made themselves co-sinners with their forefathers. That's what he said. That's exactly what he said. It's kind of the opposite of what you've been told, isn't it? You think that building Holocaust memorials to the Jewish dead, is somehow going to absolve the next generation of those sins? No, it does not. In fact, it does exactly the opposite. Well, well, well. What is a Christian to do? I have an idea for you. Don't call yourself a Christian. But. Okay. Don't listen to me then. Go do your own thing then. Go your own way. Just keep calling yourself a Christian, just like a Nazi would continue to call himself a Nazi. And when the day of judgment comes, and you're still found to be putting the mark of the beast on your forehead and making it with your right hand when you do your prayers or whatever it is that you do, but don't be surprised if the one who's going to blame it on a later generation does it to you. What's good for the Jew is good for the Christian, right? Isn't that right? So, if it's good for the Jew, it's good for the Christian. Once again, he says to the lawyers, woe unto you, because you build the sepulchres of the prophets, and your fathers killed them. Truly you bear witness that you join in. You join in and you approve. You consent and agree and of one mind. Just like you Christians consent and are of one mind with your forefathers, the cross carriers, who went out and raped, pillaged, and burned the Jews. You say you are not? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. So, because you build their sepulchres, this is also the wisdom of Jehovah. This statement that he made comes from the wisdom of Jehovah. When he said, I send them prophets and messengers, and some of them they shall slay and persecute, so that the blood of all the prophets, which was shed from the foundation of the world, may be required of this generation, from the blood of Abel unto the blood of Zechariah, who perished between the altar and the temple. Verily I say unto you, it shall be required of this generation. the blood of from Abel all the way to Zechariah will be required on this generation? Now, it says, woe unto you lawyers, for you have taken away the key of knowledge, so have you Christians. The key of knowledge that shows that the gospel is the new covenant for Israel. That the gospel, the light to the Gentiles, was secondary to bringing all Israel back home. It was secondary to the new covenant for Israel. Secondary meaning that Israel had to receive the new covenant and that the Gentiles had to be grafted in order to participate in the new covenant. As Paul said in Romans 11. You can clearly see it in Romans 11, a chapter which your preachers refuse to read, by the way. You've taken away the key of knowledge, and you have not entered in yourselves. So have you Christians. Your preachers have taken away the key of knowledge, and they refuse to enter into the new covenant. They don't even know what the new covenant is. In fact, look at this. Wikipedia, New Covenant, a Christian view. The view of the new covenant is a new relationship between God and humans mediated by Jesus upon a sincere declaration that one believes Jesus Christ as Lord and God. That's all lies. I've proven to you that God is Godin, the one-eyed false idol of the Nordics, and that Jesus is actually Jesus, or Baal, the false idol of the Druids. I've showed you that in previous videos. So what is the new covenant? The new covenant is in Jeremiah 31, verses 31 through 34. Behold, the days come, says not the Lord, but Jehovah. It says it right there. But you Christians don't recognize that name. You don't like that name. So you replace it with the Lord instead, so it's more palatable to you. That's hate. That I will make a new covenant with the church. Is that what it says? It says the house of Israel. And with the house of Yehuda. You know, the house of Yehuda, the one that you call the synagogue of Satan. You see. Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, which covenant they broke. And I was a husband unto them, says Jehovah. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel afterwards, after the time of the Gentiles comes to an end, as we obviously read in Romans 11. Says Jehovah, I will put my Torah, that's what it says, in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And they shall no more teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know Jehovah, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, saith Jehovah, for I will forgive their iniquity and will remember their sins no more. That's the new covenant. Christians don't believe that. So just like the lawyers in those days, the Christian preachers have taken away the key of knowledge, and you refuse to enter in yourselves. Those lawyers, they wouldn't enter in the new covenant, and because of that, that generation, the blood of the prophets would be required on that generation. Now, Jehovah is going to send two servants, two messengers, to the Gentiles, just like he sent the disciples, the apostles, to the 12, to the Jews who were murdered. And you got to understand, when these apostles were murdered by the Romans at the request of the Jews, because of that the blood of the prophets, which were shed from the foundation of the world, were required on that generation, all the way from the blood of Abel, who was a prophet, unto the blood of Zechariah. All would be required in that generation. So I'm announcing to you today that there are coming two witnesses, two messengers, two witnesses that will be preaching to you Gentiles. They will come out of the people of Israel. They will come out of the land of Israel and come to you after all Israel is gathered in, or while all Israel is being gathered in. I have a feeling that they are going to be the two messengers that will order the Gentiles to bring all the Israelites back in. That is what I think. They're going to bring plagues to force the Gentiles to bring in all Israel back home, including Gentiles who are grafted in among the branches of Israel. I consider myself, although I could be a Jew, don't know. There are indications in my DNA that appear to point that direction. But according to Jewish law, I'm a Gentile. So I, in my own mind, am one of those Gentiles who will be grafted in among the Jews and cleave unto the house of Israel, which is why I wear this during my videos. One of the many reasons why I wear it. And these two witnesses, once their work is finished, we'll go to Revelation 11. Once their work is finished, you Gentiles are going to kill them. Just like that generation of of the people in Jerusalem were condemned for killing the disciples. Now, but it was only that generation. This is where you Christians have gone, one of the ways you Christians have gone straight off the path. There was given unto me a reed like unto a rod, and the messenger stood, saying, Rise and measure the temple of Jehovah, not God, and the altar, and then the worship therein. But the court which is outside the temple, leave out and measure it not, for it is given to the Gentiles, and the holy city they will tread underfoot for 42 months. That happened in the days of Titus, son of the emperor Vespasian. Titus would be the prince of the people that came to destroy the city, as written in Daniel 9 and verse 27, which you Christians love to twist the scripture. And I will give power unto my two witnesses, and they will prophesy 1,260 days, for every day that the butchery and the burning was going on in Jerusalem. Nearly 2,000 years before. They will be clothed in sackcloth. Yes? They will be clothed in sackcloth. And yes, I wear this sackcloth while I'm doing these videos to point to the fact that these two witnesses are coming against you Gentiles. And I stand with them just like I stand with the Jews. These are the two olive trees and the two candlesticks that stand before you, the Elohim of the earth. And if any man will hurt them, fire proceeds out of their mouth. They will call fire down from heaven like Eliyahu the prophet did, and devours their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, this is how he's going to be killed. They have the power to shut heaven, that it rain not in all the days of their prophecy, exactly as Eliyahu the prophet did. For 3.5 years he did it. So says James. I believe it was James that said that. May have been John. Yohanan, I mean. So they will shut the sky to rain for a solid 3.5 years. So the Gentile world will not be able to grow crops. Ponds and lakes will dry up. Wells will go dry. And there will be no food. And they will have power over the water to turn them into blood and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. This looks just like the plagues in of the 7 last plagues. And when they have finished their testimony, as we read in Isaiah 66, it appears that these two witnesses will be ordering the transfer of all the people of Israel back to the Holy Land, and they will take the land that was rightfully given to them. In Yehoshua 1, verses 1 through 4, they will need all that land to bring all Israel back. After the 3.5 years is finished, the beast that ascends out of the abyss, Rome, will make war against them and shall overcome and kill them, and their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, that would be Rome, which is figuratively called Sodom and Egypt, the city that crucified the Messiah. They misconstrued this, and they said where also, first of all, Yehoshua was not crucified inside of any city. It was outside the gate of Jerusalem. So this indicates that the city Rome crucified him, as you can plainly see the indication here. And the people of the kindreds and the tongues and the Gentiles shall see their dead bodies 3.5 days, and will not allow their dead bodies to be put in the grave. And then they that dwell upon the earth will rejoice over them, make merry, and send gifts to one another, because these two prophets tormented them that dwell upon the earth. Now, the killing of those two prophets is going to bring the blood of all the Jews that were murdered from the beginning, or from the day that Jerusalem was sacked and the temple destroyed, until those two prophets are killed. And it will, all that blood of the Jews, of these people, are going to be required on that generation. Because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. What is good for the Jew is good for the Gentile. Tribulation and anguish upon every soul of men that does evil, To the Jew first, and also then to the Gentile. Well, the Jew got it first. As we plainly saw in Luke, this right here, this judgment came upon the Jews when Titus came and destroyed Jerusalem. That generation will be required on that generation. That generation. That generation only. Not all the generations afterward, like you Christians love to say. You use the words of the Jews against them when they said, let his blood be upon us and our children. But that's not what he said. He said, this generation. You see, you're not better than the Jew. In fact, your sins are much worse. Far, far, far worse than the Jews. So, the last generation of Gentiles must receive, they must have the blood of all the Jews from the destruction of Jerusalem until the two witnesses that I honor will happen on the last generation of Gentiles. Now, Revelation 17, we'll start in verse 1. And there came one of the seven angels, which had the 7 vials. Now, the 7 vials of wrath were in response to this. And talk with me, saying, come here, and I will show you the judgment of the great whore that sits upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth was made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away into the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of the names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. I have previous videos, I've told you what the 7 heads and 10 horns were, and I may have them right here, I'm not sure. Alright, the 7 heads are Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, Nero, Galba is the one that is, as was being told to Johanan. 7 is Vitellius. Now, that one continued a short space and was killed by Vespasian, who was 8th of the 7. He was the one that went into perdition to destroy Jerusalem. I'm going to read this off to you. Well, Synagogue of Satan is St. Peter's Basilica. Caligula, the man of sin. Antiochus IV, and Caligula, anti-Messiah. Here are the 10 heads. Not necessarily in this order. Number 1, Alemanni, Germany. Number 2, the Franks. Well, you know who the Franks are. Number 3, Burgundians. That's the Swiss. Number 4, Sueve. That would be Portugal. Number 5, the Visigoths. That would be Spain. Number 6 would be the Anglo-Saxon Kingdom. You know what that is. Number 7, the Lombards or Langobards, North Italy. Number 8, Ostrogoth, Kingdom of Italy. Number 9, Heruli, an East European tribe. And number 10, the Vandals, a tribe of Poland, a group in Poland. It's a German tribe of Poland, Spain, and North Africa. Now, the Vandals, Heruli, and the Ostrogoth kingdoms were overthrown by the man at the Vatican, exactly as the prophets say, exactly as is written in the book of Revelation by Yohanan, which proves that the man at the Vatican is the first beast. The beast with the 7 heads and 10 horns. So this great whore is a great city. I saw one sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of the names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And you can look at the cardinals, and they all are dressed in red. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet in color, and decked with gold and precious stones, and having pearls, and having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, and abomination of the earth. Much like the abomination of desolation, the detestable thing that is written about in Daniel 9. And the woman was drunk with the blood of the Kodesh, not the Hagios, the Kodesh. That would be the holy people, the Jews. And also with the blood of the martyrs of not Jesus, Yehoshua. Yehoshua. And as I pointed out to a born-again Christian, me and him argued over and over and over and over again until I finally just deleted the whole thing. I proved that these born-again Christians, you Catholics, you Protestants, you refuse to recognize the name of Yehoshua. You refuse to say it. You did therefore deny his name, as it is written in Revelation 3. I believe it's written twice. Revelation 2 and Revelation 3. How there were 2 congregations that refused to deny his name. Well, what has all Christianity done today but denied his name? Anyone who denies the name, they also deny the Father, because the Father carries the same name. The Father's name is Jehovah, and the Son, Yehoshua, carries the name of the Father. Yehoshua means Jehovah's salvation. So if you deny the name of the Son, you deny the name of the Father. Okay. Drunken with the blood of the Kodesh, that would be the Jews and the martyrs of Yehoshua. They wiped out all the believers in Yehoshua, and anybody that started to even get close to the name of Yehoshua, just like the Anabaptists of the 1500s and the Waldensians, who were getting close. They were getting real close to the truth, but they got murdered because Satan wanted to make sure that the name of Yehoshua would be rejected forever and ever and ever, and that it would be replaced with the name Jesus instead. All right. So then, we look at the plagues will come in 1 hour. And after these things I saw another messenger come down from the sky, having great power, and the earth was lit with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, has become the habitation of devils, and of hold of every foul spirit. Well, I tell you this, all of Western civilization has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. All the Gentiles. I hate to offend you Gentiles, but I have to tell you the truth. Says the Gentiles. Gentiles, Gentiles, Gentiles. As distinct from Israel. You can't get around it. Don't try to tell me that it means all the nations, including Israel. Don't do that. All the Gentiles have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich to the abundance of her delicacies. Oh my, how rich people are today. And this is just talking about the merchants. Not even talking about the girls on OnlyFans who make millions of dollars a year doing whatever it is that they do. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, that you had received not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto the sky, and Jehovah has remembered her iniquities. All those horrible things that she has done from the destruction of Jerusalem until then. Do to her as she did unto you. Oh, what was good for Jerusalem is good for Rome. What was good for the Jews is good for the Gentiles. The vengeance upon the Jews is also vengeance upon the Gentiles. Do unto her reward unto Rome as she rewarded you, Jerusalem, and give to her double her according to her works. In the cup which she has filled, yes, in the cup which she has filled, this would be Ecclesia, the great whore. In this golden cup which she has filled, yes, she has a crown on her head and a staff in her and her scepter in her hand with the cross on it. That's her. Do to her what she did to Synagogue. In the cup which she has filled, fill to her double. How much she glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she says in her heart, I sit as a queen. A queen. So what did she do? What did Ecclesia do? Because she said in her heart she is a queen and she put a crown on her head. This is what Ecclesia did. So if the shoe fits, you must wear it. If the crown fits, you must wear it. If the cup of fornication fits, she must wear it. I sit as a queen and am no widow, and I shall see no sorrow. For this reason shall her plagues come in one day, death, mourning, and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is Jehovah Elohim who judges over her. Verse 20, rejoice over her, you heaven, and you holy apostles and prophets, because Jehovah has avenged you on her. So it appears, it's looking like to me, that the two witnesses, the death of the two witnesses is going to be trigger this. Now, all the while the two witnesses are demanding all Israel be brought back, and once they're dead, they're killed, it even says this, come out of her, my people. And one last call to come out of her, my people, and be not partakers of her sins. And a mighty stone, a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, into the Mediterranean Sea. What do you, now, if a mighty angel takes a stone and casts it into the Mediterranean Sea, what do you think is going to happen? You have any thoughts? A mighty angel, not just any angel. Tsunamis. Saying, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down. Now, they wouldn't be speaking of ancient Babylon then, would it? Why would it be cast, the stone be cast into the sea, if it were not Rome? Ever thought about that? Walid Shubat? That great city will be thrown down, and will no be found again, and the voice of harpers and musicians and of pipers and trumpeters shall no more be heard in all of you. No craftsman or whatever craft shall it be will be found any more in you, and the sound of a millstone shall no more be heard in all of you. And the light of the candle, electricity or whatever, shall no more shine in you, and the voice of the bride or bridegroom shall no more be heard at all in you. For your merchants were the great men of the earth, and by your sorceries were all the Gentiles, that's right, Gentiles, deceived. And in her was found the blood of the prophets of the Kodesh. Now, here on top it says, and the followers of Yehoshua. But here it says, and all of them that were slain on the earth. That means everyone that was ever murdered. All the sins pile upon that city and her religion. So tell me again why you call yourself a Christian.